The month of July is almost over, people. The moment you've all been waiting for comes in next week as Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide report to fall camp. There have already been a number of preseason award watch lists that have gone out. Quite a few Crimson Tide players have landed on these lists. As for the Southeastern Conference Network, the programming for the takeover for all 14 institutions have started. Alabama went on Tuesday, and ESPN is doing a 4-part documentary series on Rolling with the Tide, taking you inside Alabama's fall camp and how Nick Saban goes about his preparation. Some very exciting things going on at the University of Alabama right now. You have chosen to tune in to the hottest show, hottest form of conversation, and I appreciate that. In terms of Alabama football, this is, in my own words, the podcast Touchdown Alabama Magazine. Yours truly, Stephen M. Smith. Ladies and gentlemen, how many of you really enjoy Alabama football? You really crave the Crimson Tide. You really want to watch this team dominate. You are diehard crimson and white. You bleed those colors. You are a fan and ambassador of Nick Saban. For those of you that really enjoy watching this team, Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube is the site you must get your hands on. Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube, as we break down and give to you the best in analysis, commentary, highlights, breakdowns, all things concerning Crimson Tide. We consistently bring that to you at a high level. Right now, nearing 1,600 subscribers, and that's thanks to you, the fans, and we want you to continue helping us grow this brand here. For those of you that YouTube may not be your thing, you're always on the go. Me personally, I tend to be one of those guys always up, out, and about within the community. SoundCloud is the next best thing for you. Touchdown Alabama Magazine SoundCloud. Check it out. Podcasts there. Hot, fresh, always ready to go. So Touchdown Alabama Magazine, YouTube, and SoundCloud. For two things you need to invest in, get your hands on if you are a diehard, smart Crimson Tide football consumer. One of the things that I wanted to tease out there, want to throw out there, and we will get into top 5 tight ends of the Nick Saban era. We'll dive into that. But one of the questions I wanted to throw out there was, should Nick Saban be considered more for national coaching honors? Here is an individual that 5-time national champion, 5-time Southeastern Conference champion, 7-time recruiting champion, and depending on how this 2019 cycle ends up, could very well be an 8-time recruiting champion. I have 3 reasons why I feel as though Nick Saban should be considered more for Coach of the Year honors, and we'll get into those. The Bobby Dodd Foundation that presents the Bobby Dodd Coach of the Year trophy prior to Southeastern Conference Media Days, it released its preseason candidate list. 20 names were on this list. Nick Saban there, along with the likes of Kirby Smart, Dabo Swinney, Urban Meyer, Lincoln Riley, Chris Peterson, Jim Harbaugh, guys like that. Nick Saban won the Bobby Dodd Trophy in 2014 for his efforts in coaching the Alabama group, but the number one reason to me that I feel as though Nick Saban needs to be considered more for Coach of the Year is how he's been able to recruit at such a high level. And a lot of people will say it's Alabama. All the 4- and 5-star kids are going to go to Nick Saban anyway, so why should he be considered for Coach of the Year when he always gets the best talent? When you get the best talent, it's a no-brainer. You should automatically win. You should automatically be the best. That's not always the case because you have to get the best talent first. We live in an era where social media has tremendous influence on people. Back then, college coaches had to go visit the particular student athlete and their parents. The college coach had to travel to a couple of high school games and get a DVD of some of the respective athletes' best plays. Nowadays, with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Huddle, Snapchat, Twitter, guys are just putting up little snippets of their best high school stuff, putting it on social media, and getting discovered that way. I mean, these guys nowadays can pretty much call their own ticket, so you have to be able to recruit these guys, sell these guys on why your program, the Alabama football program where Nick Saban is concerned, is the best program. Because you have a lot of coaches out there, you have a lot of institutions selling these guys dreams every day, but it's not necessarily that your program is the best program. You got to come with it in terms of why is your program, from an athletic standpoint, academic standpoint, getting those guys prepared for the National Football League standpoint, in all facets, why is your program the best, the brightest, when it comes to taking a young boy and developing him into a man in all phases of the game. So recruiting, big deal. That's number one as to why Nick Saban should be considered more for national coaching honors. At number two, you have a lot of guys that can recruit, but there are very few coaches that can develop players. For example, I'm not trying to bash him. He's at Alabama now. He's on the Crimson Tide staff. I'm not trying to bash him. But let's take Butch Jones, for example. Was at Tennessee. Recruiting was never his problem. Got a lot of talent there. Derek Barnett, Josh Dobbs, Alvin Kamara, Marquez North, Jalen Hurd. He got a lot of talent there. Getting the talent was not the problem for Butch Jones. Developing that talent was the problem. Could not seem to maximize what he had, and that was why chemistry in the locker room went sour, chemistry among the fan base went sour, chemistry among the front office where Jones was concerned went sour, and he ended up being fired from the program. Wasn't because he couldn't recruit, he could not develop the talent. Same with Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M. Recruiting was never a problem. Got in Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Kyle Allen, Myles Garrett, Deshaun Hall. Brother could recruit. Christian Kirk, brother could flat up recruit. Could not develop a talent, which was the reason why guys transferred out of Texas A&M, and A&M could never get over that hump of going from good to great, although its fan base, its alumni, throws in $500 million into that program. Because Kevin Sumlin could not develop the talent, there were issues. And it's about to be the same thing with Jim Harbaugh if he can't seem to develop the talent at Michigan going into whether this is year 4 or year 5 for him. That's besides the point. If he can't develop what's going on at Michigan, he will be out of a job. That's the main issue here. Yeah, some guys that can recruit, but cannot develop talent. Nick Saban has a way of developing guys physically, emotionally, mentally. Physically, Nick Saban brings you in. He puts you with the director of strength and conditioning for Alabama, Scott Cochran. Scott Cochran puts the weight on you. He puts the muscle on you. Whether you're running 110s to stay in shape, or you're bench pressing, squatting, power cleaning, curling, deadlifting, running up and down the steps of Brian Denny, whatever he has you doing, from that area to the dietary regimen, Alabama just built a brand new nutrition facility. Great area. Scott Cochran puts the weight on you, puts the physical build on you, keeps you in shape. So Nick Saban develops you physically. He develops you mentally as far as the playbook is concerned, getting you to understand not just the system, but the subtle details, the scheme, the the why you have to do this. You may understand how to do it. You may understand how to attack this gap and get from point A to point B at your various position, but Nick Saban mentally is to focus you on why we're doing this so that you have a preconceived idea of, I'm doing this because of X, Y, Z. So he develops you mentally and why you're doing what you're doing on the field, and he develops you emotionally. Emotionally because a lot of guys, when you first come in, you're not going to be the man. You're not going to be the primary guy right away. Now, there are some players that come in as freshmen, and they are can't-miss products. They are can't-miss players. They are guys that you have to put on the field right away because they possess a skill set that not many guys have. And when you are that type of player, that's an added bonus for you. But if you're one of those guys that you're a hard worker, you're tough, great character, you have high potential, but you may not be a can't-miss product right then. You may not get on the field right away, but how Nick Saban develops you emotionally is he challenges you to stay. He challenges you to stick it out. He challenges you to persevere, have that tenacity, knowing that he's willing to work with you. His staff is willing to work with you, but trainers are willing to work with you because they want to see your dreams unfold at the University of Alabama, which is why he pushes you emotionally and he says, son, you may not be the guy right now, but keep focused, keep pushing, keep being determined, keep coming to work every day. You will get your chance. We will carve out a role for you. Case in point, Levi Wallace was not supposed to become the man he ended up growing into during his time at Alabama. This was an individual who came in 2014 as a walk-on, soaking wet, 6 feet, 160 pounds. He was small. But Levi, there was just something about him, stuck his nose to the grindstone, kept his head down, stayed busy, played with purpose, played determined, played with fire, played with toughness, did not let situations and circumstances derail him. And because he was so grounded, last year, he was able to reap the benefits of what he had worked so hard for. 15 pass breakups, led the team, 3 interceptions, recorded a pick 6 against Ole Miss, completely locked down the left side of the field at cornerback, and helped his team win a national championship. And now Levi Wallace is in the National Football League with the Buffalo Bills. Developing players emotionally. Nick Saban, you may not be the guy right now. If you are the guy, great. You may not be the guy right now. But stay focused. Work with me. Help us help you. That's what Nick Saban does. He develops you physically, mentally, and emotionally. There have been times where Coach Saban has deserved Coach of the Year, and he's gotten it. I mean, you can go back to 2008, 2009, during his first couple of years with the Crimson Tide, and normally the sports writers, the media personnel, the peers around you, the guys that present these awards, the foundations that present these awards, they're more so open to awarding you Coach of the Year when it's your first couple of years with a team, with a school, with an institution, because of the fact that you are the new guy. You are coming in trying to infuse and bring fresh energy, a new perspective, a new thought, a new dynamic. Before Nick Saban got in, some of that mystique, swagger, sex appeal, nostalgia when it comes to Alabama football had diminished a bit when you look at after Wallace Wade, Frank Thomas, Paul W. Bear Bryant, and Gene Stallings left the scene. And Mal Moore recognized that quickly. That's the reason why he got on the plane and convinced Nick Saban, hey, I understand you are enjoying the National Football League right now, but if you come back to college and preferably if you come to the University of Alabama, we're going to give you every single chance to be successful. We're going to give you complete control, and we're going to assure you that your scheme works better for the college game. Lo and behold, it happened. 2008, 2009, Nick Saban got Alabama back on track. 08, 12-2 season ended the 7-year losing streak against Auburn in the Iron Bowl when it spanked the Tigers 36-0. Got to the SEC title game, should have won that game, was a terrible call on one of the plays, but I digress from that statement. Alabama finished 12-2. 2009, perfect season, first perfect season under Nick Saban, 14-0, won the SEC title, won the BCS National Championship, program earning its first Heisman winner in Mark Ingram. Nick Saban, Southeastern Conference Coach of the Year, Eddie Robinson Coach of the Year, number of awards that season. When you look at 2014, as I mentioned, got the Bobby Dodd Trophy due to coached a defense that had very little in the cupboard. C.J. Mosley was gone to the National Football League. You had Reggie Ragland, Trey Dupreez, Xavier Dixon, Adrian Hubbard, Tanae Patrick. Some pretty good linebackers, but nobody in which, when you stepped in the huddle, they commanded your respect. And then offensively, first-year quarterback in Blake Sims had to kind of pan to his strengths. So for Nick Saban to take that team, get it to a Southeastern Conference title game, get it to the first ever college football playoff was a pretty big deal. And in 2016, he was awarded the George Munger Coach of the Year. Deserved that due to the defense Alabama had in 2016. That was an otherworldly defense. And a lot of guys grew up in the 1992 era. You give a lot of kudos to Copeland and Curry and Teague and Antonio Langham, and those guys were monsters. And if you love that defense, you have every right to hail that defense as the best to ever play. The 2009 defense had Terrence Cody, Rolando McClain, Donta Hightower, Courtney Upshaw, Mark Barron, Javier Arenas, guys like Kareem Jackson. That was a solid defense. That 2011 defense, you're looking at Dre Kirkpatrick, Mark Barron, Dante Hall, Courtney Upshaw, C.J. Mosley, Nick Gentry. That was a solid defense. But that 2016 group, when you look at Reuben Foster, Tim Williams, Ryan Anderson, Jonathan Allen, Dalvin Tomlinson, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Ronnie Harrison, that was a scary, scary, scary group. We're looking at in that unit, we're talking 106 sacks, forcing turnovers, turning them into touchdowns, terrorizing offenses, having coaches scratch their heads. That defense in 2016 was arguably the best of the Nick Saban era, and he deserved Coach of the Year for that in 2016. But there were also some years that Nick Saban deserved it and did not get it, and this brings me into my third point as to why he should be considered more for national honors, and that's having that strong impact within the community. The 2011-2012 season, Nick Saban deserved to have Coach of the Year. And the reason why, 2011, citizens of Tuscaloosa, residents of Tuscaloosa, University of Alabama, and I myself included, witnessed one of the biggest natural disasters, one of the biggest tragedies in terms of this city when a deadly EF4 tornado ripped through Tuscaloosa, shut the city down on April 27, 2011. Businesses destroyed, infrastructure gone, properties damaged, lives were taken. There were 6 students that were supposed to graduate that year did not walk the stage due to lives were taken from them. And It was such a devastating time, a moment of despair, a moment of serious vulnerability. And the first two people that were on the ground were Nick Saban and his wife, Miss Terry. Now, there were other guys. Mayor Walter Maddox was there. Former United States President Barack Obama was among the people. But Nick Saban, Miss Terry on the ground, hugging wives, hugging husbands, kissing babies, rebuilding homes, rebuilding businesses, challenging players, getting the state of Alabama involved, getting different schools involved. They were out there helping the community in a major way. If you look at Tuscaloosa before Nick Saban, Tuscaloosa during the tornado, and Tuscaloosa after the fact, this place has become the risen phoenix. It's never been a big city. However, it's always kind of had the big city feel. But Nick Saban has taken Tuscaloosa and has put it on a next level landscape. I mean, I travel through this city every day, live in Tuscaloosa. I travel through this city every day. Almost every day there is something new being built, whether it's a new store, a new restaurant, a new hospital, a new sorority home on campus, a new road being paved. There is something new being built every day in Tuscaloosa. And that's geared toward the revenue, the infrastructure, the funds Nick Saban and this football team brings in. He has made a tremendous impact on the city of Tuscaloosa and the state of Alabama as a whole. And just like he helped rebuild the physical part of Tuscaloosa, the spirit part of the city was rebuilt in 2011. Nick Saban challenged that team, go out there and support the community. Go out there and rebuild that fire, rebuild that spirit within the citizens here by bringing these guys a national championship. And this program did that in 2011. It did that in 2012, going back to back. And it didn't just help the city, but it caused other athletic venues at the University of Alabama to step their game up. When softball saw football winning, Patrick Murphy's like, girls, we got to do something. And the softball team 2012 won a national championship. And it rubbed off on the gymnastics team, Sarah Patterson. And those girls went back-to-back in gymnastics 2011 to 2012. And it rubbed off on the golf team, Coach Jay Sewell. They won a national title, men's and women's. Rubbed off on the tennis team. They won a national championship. Rubbed off on the men's basketball team. The one time Anthony Grant, prior to Avery Johnson coming in, took the guys to the NCAA tournament. When Nick Saban went out to help the block and restore the community in 2011, it rubbed off on every single athletic venue. Because when Nick Saban won, it made everybody else step their game up. An impact on the community. It's been 7 years since that storm happened. But every time you see James Spann take that newsstand with those suspenders on, and if he just utters the word inclement weather, citizens of Tuscaloosa are flying to every Walmart, Kmart, Dollar General, Target, Sam's Club. They're stacking up on toiletries, milk, bread, water, and the kids are getting every ounce of candy they can find because it still lingers. The memories still linger, but it was Nick Saban out there, front and center, making that impact on a city, resurrecting the infrastructure, resurrecting the spirit of the city that is Tuscaloosa, Alabama. 3 reasons why he should be way more considered for Coach of the Year. The way he recruits, the way he's able to develop players, and the impact he has in the city. Even with the new hires he's made on the coaching staff, this is the only guy I know that can have a subpar recruiting class in 2018, or subpar by his standard, subpar by the Alabama football fan standard, Alabama finishing number 6 in recruiting in 2018. Here's a guy that can have a subpar recruiting class, have a number of coaches leave his staff for other venues, graduate 17 players to the National Football League, 12 as draft picks, 5 as undrafted free agents. But he brings in a whole new staff and is about to have another top-ranked recruiting class, his 8th possibly, at the University of Alabama, and national media pundits crowning the Tide again as a team in the fight for a national championship. Not too many people do it like Nick Saban. It's going to be an interesting season. And depending upon how these coaches do, this might be the year he gets Coach of the Year. Depending on how these coaches do, this may very well be the year Nick Saban could possibly bring in that Coach of the Year award. And I know the statement's going to be, everybody knows he's the best. Everybody knows he's the greatest. He doesn't need a trophy to solidify him. That's true. You're right. But to all the husbands out there, your wife may not always tell you, baby, you my rock. But when you hear that from her and you come home and you see that home-cooked meal on the table, it sure means a lot more. Wives, your husband may not say how much he appreciates you, but when he does it, and he does a gesture for you that's spontaneous, and you didn't ask for it, it sure means a lot more. For Nick Saban, he may not need a statue. He may not need a trophy to commemorate what he's done. But when the sports writers, when the people that present the awards, when your peers as coaches recognize you in that way, it definitely means a lot more. We'll see what happens. But taking our final break here on In My Own Words. When I get back, it's what I promised you. We'll finally dive into those tight ends of a Nick Saban era. Don't touch that dial, folks. We'll be right back. It's your boy, Stephen M. Smith, host of In My Own Words, the podcast. If you are a fan of this show, then I encourage you to subscribe to the Touchdown Alabama Magazine YouTube channel. Also follow the brand on Facebook, Twitter, and other forms of social media as we continue to bring you the best in Alabama football and Crimson Tide athletics.